Hello, MotoAmerica fans. It's time for another episode of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you may even learn something from this unlikely pair and their special guest. The mic is yours, Paul and Sean.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to holiday week, I guess you could call it. We've got Christmas, Hanukkah, all kinds of stuff here this week. And I'm Paul Carruthers, and this is MotoAmerica's weekly podcast, Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. I'm joined, as always, by Sean, who's out in Ohio. I'm in Southern California. Sean, you all ready for the holidays, or are you lagging a bit, or how's it going out there on the shopping front?
Yeah, I'm okay. I mean, it seems like pretty much everything I did this year is Amazon. So it's kind of nice. You just get it shipped where you need it to be shipped and worry about it later. But I kind of all did it in about the course of about an hour. So it wasn't too bad. But my wife was complaining yesterday. She was wrapping a lot of gifts, and I sent mine all down to where we're going to be at Christmas. And, I said, hey, you're the one that had them shipped here. What am I going to do? So anyway, how are you doing with your shopping?
I'm pretty good. I got kind of started early because I was getting together with my kids earlier. So it was like most of it had to do with them. So it was cool getting it done soon, getting that over with. And then I just had a couple more, and I'm going to go down to my parents' house on Christmas morning early, and then go from there. So, and then I got to fly to Phoenix and this and that. So it's going to be a little bit busy, but at least the traveling's close. I don't have to travel far.
My Amazon Echo just went off, so maybe I got something else here coming. I don't know, but hey, I gotta quickly provide a public service announcement out there. Paul, I'm sure you've experienced this too. And I have this happen with my mom and dad who are, they're in their 80s now. But this idea of when you ask somebody what they want for Christmas and they say, oh, I don't know, or don't get me something, that doesn't really help. That doesn't help at all.
No.
It's so frustrating.
Right. My parents do the same thing. I'm just like, look, I'm going to get you something. So can you throw me a couple of hints? Oh, no, don't spend your money. We don't need anything. Blah, blah. It's like, whatever. But it's not helpful. It actually makes it worse. But
yeah, because we have this need that we have to give something, and it's sort of like, just let the people give you something,
I know.
Come up with something. So yeah, public safety announcement out there. Always provide somebody with an answer when they want to know what to get you for a gift. Don't say don't get me anything, because you feel like an idiot after that. So
well, our guest today definitely didn't say no to his gift.
Yeah.
And quite the gift it is. Our guest today is Josh Herrin, who's the 2022 MotoAmerica Supersport Champion. He won that by a mile, 106 points over Rocco Landers in a completely dominating championship season for Josh. And then lo and behold, there was times when, we thought he was going to come back and defend that championship for the same Ducati team as last year. And all that got kind of flipped on its head here lately. And now Josh is going to be riding a Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati Panigale V2 in the MotoAmerica Medallia Superbike Championship. So Josh, a big change from where we left you at the end of the year, when you seemed fairly certain that you would be coming back to defend your championship. And now you're back with the big boys riding the Ducati Superbike. Are you stoked? Are you pumped? Are you nervous? Tell us what you're feeling over there.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. It was something that we talked about previously in the year, that in my contract in 2022 it stated that if I won the championship in Supersport, that I'd get a Superbike ride for the same team in 2023. Lewis and Bobby approached me at the Ridge earlier this year and asked if I'd be okay with staying in Supersport for another year. And I kind of, at first I was a little bit bummed, but then I thought about it and I'm like, man, it'd be kind of cool to defend the championship, because I won the Superbike title in 2013, won the Superstock 1000 title in 2016, and then now won the Supersport Championship in 22, and I've never got to run a number one plate. So I thought it would be cool. And then it also gave me a little bit more familiar with the team, a little bit more familiar with Ducati before making the move to Superbike. So that's what I kind of started planning for. And then, I got a call on Thanksgiving. Actually, I was in Hawaii with my family, and Bobby told me, "Hey, I got good news. You're on the Superbike." I'm like, whoa, wait a second, what's going on here? Thought we were doing super sport. I'm still celebrating. I'm not really preparing for anything for next year because I'm in good enough shape to do super sport again. But Superbike is something that I'd want to make sure I'm ready for. And but yeah, I am excited about it. We had to keep it under the wraps for a little while. I think they were waiting on Petrucci figuring out what he wanted to do, because as far as when I talked to those guys, they really wanted, or I at least was under the assumption that they wanted to try and get somebody with experience. So 2 years on the bike would be good for Petrucci. So their hopes were that Petrucci was going to come back. But I think whenever he decided that he was going to go World Superbike route, we had talked earlier in the year about it, and having somebody that I won a title for Ducati. I know the tires. I've won a Superbike championship before. I've won Superbike races, and it just seemed like the best bet. And kind of all the pressure was on me at that point. And yeah, I'm just ready to try and take advantage of the situation and be as prepared as possible and try and make these guys happy, because this year was a really great year for me, and I'd like to repay them the favor and get the results that they're looking for.
So Josh, one of the things I don't really understand fully about Ducatis, and I'll use the comparison to a Yamaha or Suzuki. Yamaha, their R6 and R1 have a kind of a similar look to them. There's, I guess you call it a design language, and Suzuki has it with their bikes too. But you really don't necessarily mistake an R6 for an R1. Certainly the GSX-R 600 and 750 are very hard to tell apart, but they're different enough from the 1000. In stature, they're different size bikes. So the Panigale V2 that you rode last year in Supersport versus the Panigale V4R that you're going to be riding this year. I get the fact that one's a V-twin, the other's a V4. The displacement's pretty close on them. I understand the performance is completely different, but the two bikes, if you compared them side by side, or for you to ride them ergonomically, do they feel any? Does the V2 feel lighter? Is the seating position about the same? Can you adjust it to be about the same for you? Are the bikes similar in any way ergonomically from your point of view, aside from the performance of the engine?
I think that, it's just like any other brand. I mean, the bikes are totally different. It's not going to be anything that I can really translate over. The closest thing would be the feeling of the single-sided swing arm, which a lot of people say that they don't notice, but I notice a little bit, and it's not a performance disadvantage. It's just a little bit different feeling. But the bike the V2 is much smaller, in my opinion, compared to the V4. The kind of seating position feels a little bit different to me. So it's not anything. It's going to be a totally new, thing for me to learn for sure.
Okay. Yeah. I guess I just have to get used to, the way Ducatis look and are and stuff, but seeing you on that bike last year and stuff. And I mean, it's tough because Josh, years ago, heck, you've been racing long enough that you remember the 916 V-twin was a super bike. And I'm not going to get into that next generation, all that stuff. But the fact that now you were on a 955, but it was a tough challenge for you last year with the championship. And it was a big deal for Ducati, obviously, to win that championship and for you as well. But, what did it feel like to get that done for Ducati? I mean, I think that was their first championship in the US since 1994. So that's a huge thing for them. They must've been pretty thrilled about wrapping that up as well as you were.
Yeah, it was, for them, what I was told at the beginning of the year was that the Supersport Championship was just as big of a deal for them, if not bigger, than the Superbike Championship, because they, I think V2s is kind of like it just was important for them. That's what I was told from the beginning. I was told that this wasn't going to be a cakewalk, that it was there was going to be pressure on me from the team and the manufacturer to perform, and they were expecting to win races. But for me personally, I've been trying to get a Supersport Championship since I was 16. So for me to get that was a huge deal. And the V2 is great, but it's been a hot topic all year, just trying to balance the bikes out and stuff. I challenge anybody to try and get on that bike and win races, because the thing is a great bike, but it's not with the the power balancing. It's not what a lot of people thought that it was. So I would love to see some of the guys that I was racing against go and ride that bike with the throttles positioning that we had it at. I ride one at home, obviously a stock one, so I know what the thing is stock versus what we had it at, and I had a lot of fun this year, and we were able to obviously win a lot of races, win the championship, but it was not just because the bike had more CCs than the other bikes.
Right, agreed.
Well, Josh, there's always this talk, and I kind of understand it, but I don't know if I totally believe it. And I think we're going to find out a lot more this year. But there's always this talk, and I know Petrucci often mentioned it, that the Ducati doesn't work well with the Dunlops, etc. Now, you've ridden Dunlops your entire life, so I think we'll probably be able to take that equation out of the picture, because maybe the Dunlop's problem with the Ducati was actually more of that the riders like Baz and Petrucci had spent a lot of time on the Dunlop, so it was easy to just say the bike doesn't work on these tires, when it might just be the riders not being used to it. So you go into the season absolutely knowing everything there is to know about Dunlop tires, because you've spent your entire career on it. Do you see that as being the case? Like, do you think like this thing probably doesn't have necessarily an inherent problem with Dunlop tires?
No, I don't. It's hard to say, because I don't want to, I think Baz is an amazing rider. Petrucci is an amazing rider. And so everybody they've had on these bikes are really good riders, but people don't understand how hard it is to, A, move across the world, B, be on tires that are completely different than what they're used to, C, come over to tracks that, are good tracks. They're safe tracks, but they're not, Formula One safety approved tracks. I think I know, talking to Xavi Fores about it when I was in New York this last week, he raced a lot of time, he spent a lot of time in BSB. So to him, the BSB tracks are way more dangerous than what we're racing here, and a lot more intimidating when you look at the walls and the runoff. So if you add all those things in, I think the biggest thing is probably just the tracks. Like, for them getting used to tracks that don't have 5 miles of runoff, and maybe have a little bit of character, I would say, to them, right? Like having bumps. I think that adds so much. It's really challenging, because you see even those guys come over to COTA. When I say those guys, I mean the GP guys, and they complain about the bumps. Like, yeah, the track's bumpy, but that's one of the better tracks for us that we go to. So I think it's just a lot for them to learn and adjust to. So I think, obviously I need to learn this bike, but I think I'll have a big advantage being that I've been on Dunlops and also winning a championship on Dunlops on the V2. So I think that the tires, they work just fine. I think, even I've been running Dunlop Q5s on the stock V2 and on the V4 whenever I ride it, and they work great on it. There's this kind of opinion that a lot of people have that Dunlops don't work on Ducatis, and that's not the case. I mean, I understand that they develop their bikes around a different tire, or they run, different branded tires on their production bikes, but these bikes work really good on the Dunlops. So it's, I don't think that's the case. I think that those riders are thinking of a lot of different things as they're maybe struggling to keep up with Gagne or Bobier in the past. And there's a lot of different things that they could say was working against them. But like I said, the biggest thing is just everything that they're having to learn in 1 year and then not coming back for a second year. That would be hard on anybody.
Right. Now you've seen this movie before, but this one's a little different because you've taken superbike rides in the past, Yosh, Attack, but you've always had a teammate, and I don't want to say a teammate that they could rely on more than you, but it didn't always seem like you were the number one guy. Is there a ton of pressure? Do you feel pressure now, like you are Ducati's guy in the superbike class? There's no one to fall back on. This is you and you alone. Does that make a difference to you going into this season?
Yeah, it could, because, a lot of times for me, I don't really, in the past, I've not looked at the big picture. I've always looked at, I got to be faster than my teammate. You always listen to people say, the first thing you got to do is beat your teammate. And I think a lot of times I think about that too much. And so it could have hurt me in the past. Yeah. And I've always been a big believer on, who's the A rider, who's the B rider. Like, no matter what teams say, that's a thing. It's not like it's not a thing. So, and I'm not blaming any of my past results on anything. But I think that having, in the past, when I've been when I've raced as the guy and I didn't have a teammate, those were my best years. 2016, I won the championship. The Yosh year, the Attack year in 2018 was the best year, in my career in Superbike. Even though I won the title in 2018 was a much better year for me performance wise. And then this year with Warhorse, it's been great. That's one less thing that I need to worry about. I can just focus on myself. I show up to the track. I have my lounge. I have my bike. I'm the only one riding it. Like, I feel like I'm the guy. So I think it does help no matter what anybody says. It's nice having a teammate sometimes because you can look at data, but I think a lot of times it does a lot more damage than good. Even look at GP in the past. How many riders do you hear of that are fighting within a team? That's always your number one competitor. So the guy that you need to be beating first and foremost is the guy that sometimes is just chilling in the lounge, happy as can be, because he just set pole by a second and you have no idea what he's doing or how he did it. So sometimes I think it's a big advantage to be the only rider.
Yeah, and Josh, I've talked to Matthew Skoltz about this a bunch, just because he's one of the notable superbike riders in our series that doesn't have a teammate. And a lot of people say, why doesn't he, or will he ever have that? And you're right. I mean, a lot of times the way you ride a bike is different than another rider. Your stature might be different. It's interesting. Like last year, you think about with the M4 team, you got Jake Lewis and you have Richie Escalante. Well, the two riders are so different in stature and even the way they ride. So sometimes I think you're right. It can get you messed up, but let's talk a little bit about personnel wise, if you can. And I'm not sure how much you know about this to start with, but we had heard that if Petrucci was going to be coming over here, he was probably going to have a different crew chief. Maurizio Perlini was going to be replaced by somebody else. I don't know if Perlini was doing something else. We know you had David Behrend last year, an American suspension guy who did a great job, obviously crew chiefing you all to a championship. A lot of the guys on Petrucci's crew last year were Italian, with the exception of Danny Anderson. Do you know what the makeup of your crew is going to be this year? Do you yet know who your crew chief is going to be? Is it going to be a mix of Italian people and, people like Danny? Will he be back, or do you know any of that yet?
As far as I know, it'll be a different crew chief, but it'll still be Ducati Corsa. I believe, I got along great with Maurizio, but I had heard some stuff that, Petrucci might not have been happy, or, somebody wasn't happy in the team with what was going on. So we have a different Ducati Corsa crew chief. I'm not sure exactly who it'll be, but I think it might be Simone, who was on the team. And then I think Danny's coming back as mechanic. I think Marco's coming back from Ducati as well, from Italy. And I think they're also adding some other people. So I know that we're 100%, backed by Ducati Corsa with factory 23 V4Rs. So they're definitely going to, as far as I understand, going to spare no expense. I know that when I first got the call from Bobby, I know Lewis called me right after and said, "Hey, this isn't official yet. I want to make sure before any of this happens that you have the best of the best support, and that we're going to get a good crew, and that everything's there for you to win. And then they called, a few days later and said, all right, we're good. We have what we wanted. And so the ride's yours. So I know that for sure we're going to have really good crew from Ducati Corsa, and we don't need to worry about any of it.
That's great. And, I had actually heard that they basically told you on Thanksgiving Day that you were going to get that ride. Is that true?
Yeah. They called me Thanksgiving Day, like I said earlier. And it, it was a shock to me. I didn't really know what to think because to be honest, and I've talked to Bobby about this before, and this doesn't have anything to do with how I feel now, but initially I just was scared. Like even earlier in the year when we talked about going to Superbike, I was nervous, the year before didn't go well. And, I think some of it was mental because of things that I thought was going on in the team. But, I just was a little bit nervous to go. I'm coming off a really good year. We won a championship. Like kind of some of my thoughts were like, everybody has them. Like there's that self-doubt. And once I thought about it and sat down about it and was able to really think about it and kind of tell myself like, all right, this is going to be your 18th year racing motorcycles professionally. And I really know what I need. It's like almost like going through a really bad relationship for a long time. You sit on it for a little while and you think like, what do I need to have a good relationship, or what do I need to succeed? And then, not all times, but a lot of times from listen to people that I know and from my experience, you find the right thing whenever you really sit down and you have time to think about what you need to succeed or have a good relationship. And I thought about, what do I need? I think I've heard from people that I've raced against, and I've heard from people that, on the outside looking in, that, they've always considered me somebody with the most natural talent that they've seen in the last few years in America, or the last however long. I'm not saying that I'm better than anybody that I've raced against, but just from what people have said, and the thing that they've thought that I lacked the most of was just preparation, like how bad I wanted it. And I've talked about it a bunch of times that, there's times where I've said, oh, I'm training hard and I'm going to get it. But it always, it was kind of like a 80% thing. There was one year that I really, like, when I look back at it, that I really was dedicated, and it was 2018. And that's what I'm trying to model myself off of, just from experience that I've had. It was what I did in 18. I'm trying to replicate what I did that year and then some. And so that's really, I think, what's going to make the biggest difference is me wanting it, not just riding off natural talent. And it's just, like I said, always been something that I've struggled with for some reason. It's hard to push yourself that extra 30% whenever you can win races by not doing much. But when you look back on it, like I said, and really think about what I need to do to succeed, it's giving that extra bit of effort. And like I said last year, it's crazy how much in the years past people talk about, you have a kid, you slow down. And I honestly think that last year was such a motivation for me to race hard for my kid. I want to be winning Superbike races again. I want to win Superbike championships. I look at Josh Hayes, he was, I don't even know how old, 35, 36 when he started with Yamaha on the Superbike, and the guy won four Superbike championships. So I'm only 32 years old, and I'm arguably going to be on the best bike in the paddock this year with factory Ducati backing. And I have no excuses, and I really need to, like I said earlier, take advantage of the situation and make sure there's nothing left on the table. And I'm willing to do anything this year to make sure that we get there.
One of the things that was unusual last year, Josh, with Petrucci, is that during the off season, they did some testing. They did it in Portimao on with the bike on Dunlops, which was a little odd because we don't race at that track. And I know we don't race at places like Thunderhill or Buttonwillow or whatever, but I would assume you guys are going to be testing during this off season, and you're probably going to be testing here in the U.S., not going over to Italy. Do you guys have a plan to do any testing, not to give away any dates or anything, but you'll be able to be on the bike a few times before the start of the season. Is that right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. We've already done actually 3 tests on the bike, since the season ended. And I think we plan on doing at least 5 more before the season starts. And hopefully we get, some tracks that we're going to race at, but it's not the end of the world if that's not the case. Cause you look at Attack, they test at Buttonwillow. That's the only track that they test at. So I don't think that that's really what makes you be successful or not. You just need to find a track that has good all around, kind of good all around track to test at that's similar to a lot of the places that we go to. So I think that the team's fully prepared, like I am, to do whatever we need to do to be competitive this year and to be fighting at the front with Gagne and those guys, on his good day.
Yeah. So Josh, I've been dying to talk to you about, I picked up on those two, Jason, I think his name is pronounced Camissa or something like that, but Haggerty, the thing you did with Haggerty. And I want to ask you about that. Those two videos were fantastic. I think my favorite thing about it, other than the fact that you just absolutely were crazy, you should be a drag racer. I mean, your ability down a quarter mile is pretty impressive, but I also loved the kind of attitude you brought to that video. The fact that you didn't even say anything was so cool. I mean, I thought it's like you didn't have to say anything, you just showed up. Can you tell us how that came about? Did they get in touch with you? And how did it work out that there were 2 episodes, and will there be more of those? Tell us about that whole experience.
Yeah, it was, so Alex France at Ducati called me and asked if I was willing to go out to Willow Springs and ride. And I said, yeah, for sure. I didn't really know anything about, and I'm not saying this out of any disrespect. I didn't know about Haggerty's YouTube channel. I'd seen them. I'd seen their logo on Cam Peterson's stuff before and just thought it was a motorcycle insurance company. And when I got out there, they had a production. I mean, there was 10 people out there, shooting video, and this was, nice cars. Like I was shocked. And we kind of, when I first got there, it was like, hey, it's 30 something degrees. Like, oh, we need you out ready to go in about a half hour. It's like 7:30 in the morning. I'm like, oh man, I thought it was going to be like a 10, 11 o'clock shoot time or, start by the time we started riding, but we got out there early. And I could just tell right away that Jason's character, his attitude was similar to mine. His personality was similar to mine. So we just hit it off really well and ended up being, instead of just somebody showing up just to ride a bike, it really ended up being like us having fun and going back and forth with it. And, they would do each shoot or each take probably 10 times. So we'd kind of mess around with it. We had like the bat scene and the, flipping the camera off and scooting forward against the tank, like just little funny moments like that we got to. And after the first one, it was, I think they liked it and they're like, man, this is going to be a cool video. Like we didn't just get a bike drag race, and we got like somebody that was messing around, sliding, wheeling, like they liked it. So they're like, hey, we're thinking about bringing the bike back for another one now since we worked with you. And Alex hit me back up the week after, and I was there again. And now it's actually turned into them talking about possibly putting somebody as the, having kind of a bike channel on that YouTube channel. So there's a possibility of that happening next year, I think. And I'm just along for the ride really. And it ended up being that we were all happy working together. So we decided to do it again, but it was nuts, man, racing against, GT3s and R8s and $250,000 electric cars, fastest car or sedan in the world, Bugattis. Like it was pretty nuts. Yeah.
That Lucid Air Sapphire that thing is ridiculous. I mean, it's got like 3 electric motors in it, and it's the fastest production car in the world. But of course, now everybody wants to see what the lap times would be. You lapping against one of those. So, I mean, did they talk about that at all? About doing a lap? Fastest lap?
I asked about lap times because Randy Post. If I always mess his last name up. Did I say that right?
Yeah, I think it's Post. I think he got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about kind of some of the lap times around those tracks, and the bike actually they were surprised at how fast the bike would do around like Streets of Willow and Willow Springs. So I'm not sure if it's something, I think the car people might get a little too sad if we do that. The GT3 I'm sure would be hard to beat though. That's a crazy car. But, I've talked to, one of the crew chiefs on the V2 side last year, Giovanni, we talked about like Scott Redding's lap times on stock V4s, and it's crazy how good those bikes are stock. So, I think that was the biggest thing they're surprised about. Is like, yeah, a race bike, we understand will probably go around those times, but we didn't know a production bike would. And that's the one thing about like a stock V4 that's so impressive, is how good they are right off the showroom floor.
So
I'm not sure if they'll do that or not.
I think for me, I think I knew what you were doing in that first video, but for sure I knew it after seeing the second video, because at first I was like, oh no, he meant to wheelie that entire time. You were trying to do that, right?
Yeah, because the first one, I don't think it really matters, but so the first one, the bike was so much faster than what the car was. And so what they do is a lot of times they do they do the testing of the cars, but the official times come from like when they do the official test for the cars, where this is just a video production. So the surface might have been better whenever they got their times, but now that we're doing the race, they're at a different track or whatever, different asphalt. So the Corvette was spinning a lot off the line. Actually, a lot of the cars do at Willow. They spin off the line. So you had to kind of show a little bit of a race for the camera. But if we would have just straight up drag raced the Corvette off the line on a normal surface, like something that everyday drivers would use, the bike would crush it. I mean, you're talking like 2 seconds almost. The same with the Bugatti. Like the Bugatti was terrible off the line. The GT3 was really good. Like that was close to the real numbers that they said. The Sapphire and the Tesla, that was close. Like the race that I did against the Sapphire and the Tesla, that was like real footage. I was trying my hardest to try and keep up with the Sapphire, and we ended up being like 1.5 or 2/10 off of it. But for a $250,000 1,000 horsepower electric car, I'd say that the bike held its own, and yeah, people were impressed by it. But the first one, yes, I was wheeling kind of just for show of the camera, but also to kind of like, mess with the car guys a little bit on the videos. But the Sapphire video, I was trying my hardest to keep the front wheel down. And it was a lot of fun though. I was super stoked that I got to do that. It opened some doors. I actually was the one driving the GT3 in the first video, and I had so much fun. I got to launch that thing all day also. So it was a ton of fun.
I didn't know that, because they do a good job where you can't really tell, who's in there, even when they have all the cars lined up. Obviously, Randy Post isn't going to be able to duplicate himself and be in 2 other cars. So they had somebody else in there. And we knew with your leathers and your helmet, that was you on the bike. But to your point about that second video, yeah, you almost caught that Sapphire. And I think if you had a little bit more distance, you would have absolutely caught it. I mean, that was crazy how close.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe how much the Lucid guys were. They were there the whole day before. They rented the track themselves to test, get the thing ready. We would do a launch, and the guy in the Sapphire would do like a lap around the whole track to like recharge the car. Like they would check tire pressures before every time we launched. They were like trying to take as much weight out of the thing as they could. Like it got to the point where the camera guys were like trying to put GoPros on my winglets, and I'm like, hey, no, like, because I had Alex from Ducati, like, hey, we need good times. Like, this is serious. We need to be up there. I'm like, you guys can't be putting cameras on the bike. We're trying to like go for time here. Like, we could do another take with the camera so you have the footage, but like, I need to get a good time against this Sapphire right now, because those guys were dead serious. Like, they weren't smiling at all until the end of the day. Like, you would have thought we were at Daytona 200. Like, those guys were very serious about the times. I'm not even kidding. Like, they were so serious.
Well, I love the host, Jason, when he said something about Ducati told you not to save the clutch, just go for it completely. So it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like, at the end of the day, when the clutch was going out, because we were doing launch after launch after launch, and we weren't giving it time to cool down, it was nuts how consistent. And I'm not saying this, to give kudos to Ducati. I'm just saying that I was shocked that a clutch would take that much abuse. That, I mean, I was dragging the shit out of it. And at the end of we swapped the clutch one time, but the second clutch, I basically did some times on the first one. And then the second one, I wanted to get like a good enough time that we were okay on the first clutch, and then put a brand new one in, and I was going to abuse the shit out of it. And at the end of the day, when I was like, the clutch was slipping, like the times were still basically the same. Like we were within the 10th every launch, and it actually was like smoother because it helped keep the front wheel down a little bit more, which was crazy. But yeah, it was nuts how we were frying the clutch like big time.
Well, one of the things that you've done, and you've really embraced Ducati since you've switched over to that brand, Josh. I mean, you've fully been involved. Obviously, we see you, riding on the street with their bikes, and you had the V2. You're going to be on the Superbike now. You rode this bike at this event, or this challenge with Haggerty. During this past year, have you got a sense of what they call Ducatisti? I mean, these Ducati people that just are all about that brand, and how does it feel to be part of that family, so to speak?
Oh, it's great. I mean, I got to go to a concert with the CEO of Ducati, like just me and him. Like that doesn't happen at any other brand. Like these guys they're all about kind of the experience is what I've learned. Everywhere you go, like I went to the world sales meeting in Italy, and like they're about experience. Like that's their biggest thing. And I was even talking to Dax Shepard about it when we were at a track day. He's like, you got to realize like Ducati is a great motorcycle, but more than anything, it's a brand. Like people that don't know about bikes know about Ducati, which is true. Like I go on the V2 or the V4 on the street, and people will be like, oh, that's a sick Ducati. But on previous bikes I rode, they don't know what it is. Like, oh, what bike is that? Or when I go to talk to somebody now, it's like, oh, what bike do you race? I'm like, oh, I race for Ducati. Like, oh, wow, you race a Ducati? Or before, you could tell them what bike or brand you're on, and they don't know about it. They don't like, oh, it's like they could care less. You tell them that you ride a Ducati, and everybody knows what that is. And when you go to dealerships, like Ducati paid me to go to a bunch of different dealerships, dealerships were paying for me to come and do dealer rides with them. So Ducati would set it up. They would pay for me to come out and do rides with like whatever their groups, right? And it is hardcore. Like these guys, like when you buy a Ducati, you don't go back. Like you're in that brand forever. And it's not just a bunch of guys that go get coffee either. There are those guys, and that's what you hear a lot of people saying. But these guys ride the heck out of their bikes, and they love them. They're all about it. And I felt the love this year. It was a little bit, I think, I was expecting sometimes to be a little bit different, but when you have Danilo Petrucci, who is a factory MotoGP Ducati rider who has won GP races, the attention is going to go to him a little bit more, obviously. So I think this year will be different since I'm, flying the flag on the Superbike, and we won the championship now. So I got a little bit of credibility with the Ducatistas. So I think we'll feel a little bit more love this year. But I did love being a part of the brand. And like I said, getting to even just go to what CEO of what motorcycle manufacturer invites riders to come to concerts with them and just hang out with them on a personal level. And it's just been an amazing experience. And even Phil Reed, I mean, when his dad passed away, I found I'm big into baseball cards. So there was a Phil Reed PSA 10 graded card of his dad, and just getting to see him in person and give him the card and kind of share this connection with racing. Paul can, speak on this, like with his dad being as huge of a racer as he was. Like it's a guy that's high up at Ducati that I can talk about stuff like this with. That's not normal for other manufacturers. And I'm not taking anything away from those manufacturers. I'm just saying it's a totally different feeling with this brand, and everybody at the company is all about it. And it's just a lot of fun, and I'm super happy to be wearing red again this year.
All right, let's fast forward a little bit and look into the future. I mean, I think this year, the Superbike class, or next year, I'm sorry, but the Superbike class is going to be ultra competitive. I mean, we have Jake Gagne, Cameron Peterson, Matthew Skoltz, Cameron Beaubier, whoever Cameron Beaubier's teammate is going to be, whether that's PJ Jacobson or whomever. But I mean, on paper, I realize we don't race on paper. It'd be a lot cheaper if we did, but on paper, it's really going to be a close championship. You can see 5-6 different winners, perhaps. My question goes back to Cameron Beaubier and Moto2. You did your season of Moto2. I know it didn't work out well for you, but I still think that you gained something from that season. And I'm of the opinion that Cameron Beaubier may be a better motorcycle racer this coming season than he was the last season he was here when he won a championship, his 5th championship. Would you agree with that? I think just the Moto2 thing with the fact that you basically have to ride your ass off every single lap of every single session before you even get to the motorcycle race itself, that's got to help you. Do you think that's going to be the same with him?
I think you're going to see a more aggressive Cam. Like before, like just say 18, for example, like I could, make it. It's not like I was around him the whole season, but when I was, you can make a like rough pass on Cam or tight pass on him, and he wouldn't fight right back. He wanted to be in the front, and he was obviously the guy who won way more championships and races than I did, but he was a rider that I felt like I could, if I had to, I could like ruffle him up a little bit, and maybe I wasn't as fast as him, but I could stuff him and it would fluster him a little bit. Now I think that is going to be improved with Cam. Like you said, you're used to always fighting in Moto2, and you have to be like going right from the drop of the flag, right? So I think you'll see like Cam improved in a lot of areas like that, but I don't think the bike's as competitive as the bike that he was on or the bike that Gagne is going to be on. So, Cam might be a better rider, but I think that it's going to take a little bit of time for him to really get used to the BMW. So we'll see. But yeah, I do think that for sure anybody that goes from here and goes to Moto2, they're going to come back totally different rider. He's probably fired up. He probably wants to prove people wrong. So I'm looking forward to racing against him, and I'm hoping that I'm a little bit more prepared than I used to be when I would go up against him. And I hope that we have, like you said, super tight racing at the front. It'd be sick to see 5 or 6 of us up there battling for wins.
Now, my last question on this, he had to change his style to ride that Moto2 bike. Your style, the way that it is and the way that it was, looks like a Moto2 style anyway. I mean, you hang off a lot more than he ever did, but then you can see the style changes he's had to make where he does lean off. Now, will he be fine just keeping the style that he's got now, or would you see him going back to his old style?
No, I think that he's going to probably keep the same style that he had. The only thing is that he was on a 600 versus 1,000 now. So, lines are going to be a little bit different, which, he's won enough races on a Superbike that he knows how to ride a Superbike correctly. But I think also the tires are improving more and more, and they're getting better on the edge of the tire for the Superbikes, and electronics are getting better. So, like, who knows? Maybe it's not as much of a point and shoot style anymore. But, I don't know. It's one thing's for sure is he's going to be at the front no matter what brand he's on. It's just being there at the end or how comfortable he is with that bike.
Josh, I just thought of something when Paul was talking about your Moto2 style of riding. I've never forgotten this, and I bet you didn't have it either, but I think about this a lot. Several years ago, there was a publication, if you want to call it that was put out, that was written by a couple of people that did evaluations of riders. And one of the things that this publication said about Josh Herrin is he leans so far off the bike that he can't see anybody going around him on the outside. And I thought that was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard in my life. I was like, what? So these MotoGP riders that hang off their bikes as much as they can, and that's a problem? I mean, do you remember when that comment was made?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was Superbike Planet interview, if I'm not mistaken. And I used to love Dean Adams. I loved him. And this year he like really rubbed me the wrong way. I remember though, when that article came out, it bummed me out for sure, but yeah, whatever. I mean, it's different people's opinions, but that seems pretty strange. Like MotoGP, you have guys dragging their shoulders now and putting their head on the ground almost. And yeah, they're talking about me leaning over or leaning off the bike too much. I didn't agree with it then. I don't agree with it now, but it's, but it was, I mean, it is cool that somebody came out with a way to kind of like rate riders and talk about their weaknesses and their strengths and stuff. I mean, that part of it was cool, but it's I don't think that was a good opinion, but I think it's neat when people do that, because it's kind of like watching Sports Center or something. They're talking, bad about some athletes, right? So you got to have that stuff. But yeah, I think that was not a good point.
It was a weird evaluation, because we know famously you've passed people around the outside a couple of times, and it's like, oh, here's the guy that everybody thought would get passed on the outside because he was leaning in too far, and here he does it to other people. So I just thought it was probably like a shitty way of saying, something about me taking riders out or something. I don't know. Was that in a pre-race thing for like a brochure for the race, or was that Superbike Planet? Yeah, it wasn't Superbike Planet. It was actually, I'll tell you who it was. It was Chris Martin that put it together.
It was going to be a book.
Yeah, and
okay, yeah.
Yeah, he had gotten input from some people in the paddock, but I remember, I read a bunch of them. There was some that were memorable, but that one, I think I remember talking to you about it right after that. And I just I instantly thought it was just an odd sort of a thing to say. But this thing about you mixing it up, I wanted to bring that up too, because, one of the things in the past, we've seen you with certain riders. You mentioned about Cameron. Well, we know Matthew Skoltz and you sometimes have tussles out there, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes this year with you on a Ducati, and see, depending on where you guys are on the track at the same time. But famously, he obviously got involved a couple of times with Petrucci on some things here and there. So are you anticipating that you're probably going to be on the track in the vicinity of Mr. Skoltz a couple times here and there?
Oh, I mean, I'm sure every time, you race a Superbike, you're going to expect to be around Skoltz, but me and him, I think me and him have a good relationship. I think I have a good relationship with everybody, in the top five, actually probably everybody on the grid, but yeah, I expect to be around Skoltz a lot and probably having some good battles with him all year. It'll be fun. Like always. I think it's, he's aggressive, I'm aggressive. And whenever you get two aggressive riders, you get some good racing. So hopefully, I think pretty much everybody that'll be fighting at the front this year is going to be super aggressive. There's not one guy that won't shove it underneath you if they need to. I just think that whenever people say, oh, wait till the end of the race to do that stuff, why are you doing it at the beginning of the race when there's no reward? It's like that we're last time I checked, we're all racing for money. And when you watch a professional boxing match or MMA fight, what do you do whenever there's fights where everybody's just kind of standing around and not throwing any punches? You turn the channel and you wait till the end of the fight and you go back, or you watch the highlights. Like my job is to win races and make racing entertaining and try and ruffle the feathers of my competitor, because if I'm not stuffing people right from the get-go, then they're not intimidating me. And if I'm not intimidating people, then they're going to do it to me. So I think that's just the way I've always been. And I think that's the way pretty much everybody is in the front of the grid now.
Yeah. And, the reason I bring up Matthew is because I don't know if you saw it, but it was funny yesterday on Westby Racing's Facebook page. Vanessa does put up the photo of you and Skoltzy, and I thought it was cool. It reminded me of like, oh yeah, here they are again, and that was a great photo because you guys are buddies there. So it's all good. The relationship is good.
Yeah. I don't think there's ever been a time when me and Maddie weren't on good terms. I think, as I've talked about before, I'm the type of rider that, I show my emotions, and, sometimes if I look at it from the outside in, it's sometimes too much, but I can't help the fact that I'm super passionate about what I'm doing, and I just say what I think. And I think Skoltz does the same thing. So I think we're both similar on the track.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch for sure. So I don't have much more, but I do have one other question. I'm seeing if I can get any kind of breaking news or scoop out of you, Josh Herrin. So Josh Herrin, you competed in last year's Daytona 200. You're going to be in Superbike this year. Are you racing in the Daytona 200 this year?
I mean, the plan right now is, to be racing. That's my favorite race of the year. And,
right.
I had a lot of fun in it last year. I didn't get to finish. Obviously, we didn't get to finish the race this year, I guess this year. And in 2020, they canceled it because of COVID. So I'm hungry to get back out. I love that track. I love that event. And it's always held a close place in my heart just because I was lucky enough to win it in 2010. And
Yep.
and it'd be great to be there again. So as far as I know, that was one of my requests was that I wanted to do the 200 again. I haven't got an official confirmation, but as far as I know that they were, they're planning on putting me in it. So
I thought hey, Paul, I thought he was going to smoke me on it. He was just going to make up something and it wasn't even going to be close to revealing it. Maybe he's telling me this and he isn't going to be in it, but I have a feeling he wants to get back there next year. So, so Josh, thanks for giving us that info. So anyway.
He doesn't want Brandon Posh to get another watch. I know that.
Another watch. Yeah, he doesn't have any more wrists to put him on unless he's going to put it on his ankle.
Yeah, probably fit. Hey, so I've got one more thing because you brought it up, and the reason, well, not the only, a big reason for Jake Gagne's success last year was the fact that he can go like hell from the drop from the green light to the finish. But I mean, in the first couple of laps, he puts a second or second and a half on everybody. And it was funny because you just mentioned like people giving you crap because you're aggressive early in the race and it doesn't really matter. If you're not aggressive early in the race with Jake Gagne, no one's going to beat him. So you may need to do what you used to do on a Superbike, and that was you went hard from the very beginning, or else the guy's going to get away and you don't catch him.
Yeah. I mean, there's a difference in being aggressive, to get away from everybody, and being aggressive like you're willing to like fight for a position. But
right.
I think either way he was, because anytime somebody would get close to him, he'd fire right back. So, he comes from the moto background. So, I mean, it's basically like Moto2, right? You're always fighting, you're block passing. So, there's obviously no point in racing if you're not trying to win. It's not like I'm being cocky by saying that my goal is to go out and beat Gagne, but yeah, he's been good at that, but we need to be better at it. And we just need to, I think it goes back to one of the original questions you asked, is it's just having the confidence in the tires and the tracks to do it. So I think, that'll be one advantage that I have over what Baz and what Petrucci had, was that I have experience on the tires and with the track. So as long as we can get enough testing in, I think we'll be ready to be fighting up there with them. I mean, yeah, I hope that we can. I mean, that's, he's definitely been on fire the last 2 years. So it's going to be hard to do it, but I know that I have the bike to do it. I know I got the team to do it. It's just, comes down to me putting in the work and having the right mindset whenever we go into it. And, I hope that Richard doesn't have any cheating tricks up his sleeve like he has in the past.
All right. Well, Sean, I don't know. Do you have anything else, or can we let him go and we all run away and have happy holidays?
No, I think we're good. I mean, I'm glad we got you on, Josh, and thanks for being on so quickly after announcing this deal. We were anxious and interested to talk to you and see, how you felt about everything. But we wish you huge amounts of luck this year. I mean, it's a big step for you to continue your rides with Ducati and with the faithfulness of those fans to, give them more of what they want. You certainly gave it to them last year with that championship. So best of luck on all of that, and happy holidays as well.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, I'm looking forward to another fun year, and hopefully get to see a lot of you guys and girls listening out at the races. And hopefully we see another record setting attendance here. That'd be really cool.
And Josh, I'm going to continue to give you dad advice, so maybe you need to start listening a little more. He always listens, but it's too late. He always says, "Oh, you were right. I shouldn't have done that." And I'm like, "Yeah, well." All right, boys. You guys have a great holiday, and look forward to talking to you all again soon.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.